Parshas Balak Tavshin Ayin Tes. And really, besides Parshas Balak this week, in addition to the Parsha of the week, we also need to know that this Shabbos will be Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. And while we normally try to stay exactly on the Parsha and only stay with the Parsha, the fact is that Shiva Asar B'Tammuz actually falls out on Shabbos this week. And of course, the actual tainus, the actual fast, is not on Shabbos, and that will be pushed off to Sunday. But the day of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz is still the day of Shiva Asar B'Tammuz, and that falls out this year as it did last year. It falls out on Shabbos. And therefore, we're going to speak about Shiva Asar B'Tammuz. We're going to be going into the Bein Hametzarim now. We're going to be going into the 3 weeks, and we really, Chazal tell us that before each Yom Tif, that shoyalin v'dorshin b'hilchas hamoyed. And we all know, we all say, shloshim yom koydem achag, before the Yom Tovim, before Pesach, we know how much the halachas have to be learned. And before Sukkot, we're well aware, Rosh Hashanah, all these things, it's so many halachas, we're always saying that we have to prepare beforehand. And Nesivos Shalom tells us that it's not that way only on Yom Tiv. That just like we say, shoyalin v'dorshin b'hilchas hamoyed, that we have to prepare and ask about the halachas of the holidays before the holidays, so too, included in that idea of having it before any occasion, that we need to learn and understand all the halachas about Shiva Asar B'Tammuz in the Bein Hametzarim, and really what it means to us and how we are supposed to, how it is incumbent upon us to really approach these weeks in the right way. And when we look at the Bein Hametzarim, we really need to think about what eternal lessons are the lessons that need to be learned during this time period. And one thing is clear, Nesivos Shalom tells us that it is not some sort of avelis, some sort of mourning over something that transpired in the past and now it's gone. That's not essentially what we are mourning about, because as Am Yisrael, we don't just commemorate the past. That is not the way we are as people. We don't just make these commemorations. If we commemorate anything from the past, the focus and the idea is, how does this apply to me now? What lessons can I learn from the past to apply to myself now so I can grow, so I can make things better? We're always looking to grow for the future. And what's really interesting about the Churban Habayis, what's really interesting about this time period of Avelis from Shiva Asar B'Tammuz until Tisha B'Av, is that Chazal tell us that, there was a gezerah about someone who dies, Rahman al-Itzlan. If somebody has a death of somebody that's close to themselves, that there's a gezerah that the intensity of the loss that's felt of a death should not remain with a person forever. Otherwise, a person would never be able to live. A person would never be able to go on. And the idea is that the death should be forgotten to a certain point. And the Pasuk in Tehillim tells us, David HaMelech says, Nishkachti kemeis milev, that it is forgotten from my heart, David HaMelech says, like a mace, like someone who dies. In other words, of course you always remember, and of course you always know, but the sting is gone. The sting, the initial crippling loss, that somehow wears off a little bit. And that's a gezerah, that it should be that way, because otherwise a person would not be able to live, a person would not be able to function. But look at the way it is by Churban Habayis. By the Churban of Yerushalayim, we say, Emeshkalchech Yerushalayim Tishkach Yemini. David HaMelech also in Tehillim says, if I forget Yerushalayim, if I ever forget Yerushalayim, then Tishkach Yemini. And what David HaMelech is saying is that we can never ever forget Yerushalayim. But if there's a gezerah, if there is something built into the world that when something dies, it should somehow be forgotten about, what is it about Yerushalayim that David HaMelech is telling us, Im eshtochech Yerushalayim tishkach yamini? It must be, the answer is that Yerushalayim never dies. The idea of Yerushalayim is alive, and it needs to be alive with every one of us. Every one of us has to feel Yerushalayim in our lives, Yerushalayim, Eretz Yisrael, in our bones. It has to be there. It has to be that it's not a death. It's not something that happened in the past and we feel bad over it. It can never, ever be forgotten. So if you do forget Yerushalayim and you think it's something that's been lost so many years ago and that's it, then tishkach yamini. You're not going about it in the right way. And the Nesivos Shalom tells us a very, very important lesson about the Avelos for the Beis HaMikdash. And he says that, you know what the Avelos of the Beis HaMikdash really is that we need to know this idea that we are not coming to terms with this loss. We're not coming to terms with it. We constantly need to be longing for the Beis HaMikdash to be built. You know, sometimes in life, we come to terms with things. And you know, things bother us a lot. You say, you know, you resign yourself, and that's it. People tell you, oh, I'm just going to come to terms with it. It's not going to change. And nothing's ever going to be different. And with Yerushalayim, with the Beis HaMikdash, it cannot be that way. We have to constantly be longing for the Beis HaMikdash to be rebuilt. We constantly need to remind ourselves of its loss every minute and never come to terms with the fact that we are living without a Beis HaMikdash, that we are living without the holiness that the Beis HaMikdash brought us. And the Kabrina Rav, Zechusah Yagan Aleinu, tells us that the worst thing for a person is when you decide that it's okay to live without the Beis HaMikdash. Because if that's the way you're going about it, then it's really, really bad news. A person can never say, listen, you know, we've done it for almost 2,000 years now. It's okay. We're fine. We'll find a way through it. That's the worst thing. A person can never, ever get to that point. And Nesivos Shalom also brings from the Abda Rav, Zechusah Yagan Aleinu. And the Abda Rav, when people used to come to the Rav, they used to come with their problems. They used to come to ask for eitzes. They used to come to ask the Rav about how to go about certain things when they had troubles in their life. And the Abda Rav used to ask them. He used to say like this. And when they were finished telling the Rav their woes, he says, okay, I will deal with that soon. We're going to speak about it. But what about the fact that we did not bring a carbon tamid today? What about the fact that we cannot go to the Beis HaMikdash today? Does that bother you? You know, you're telling me your problems, but we have so much bigger problems. If we had the Beis HaMikdash and the Shechina and everything was there, everybody has to know that their personal life would be so much different. So the Abda Rav would ask them, I understand you have your personal problems, but did it bother you? Did you wake up this morning saying, we're not bringing a carbon tamid? We have so many more problems. We have things that we really, really have to deal with. We ask 3 times a day, and sometimes we're just maybe saying it by rote, and we have to hope to not, but 3 times a day, Chazal, the Anshe Knesset HaGdolah instituted in the Shmoneh Esrei, V'Yerushalayim Yercha B'Rachamim Tashuv. We ask for it. Maybe we first remember that we're davening Shmoneh Esrei when we take 3 steps back and we wake up. But that's not the way it's supposed to be. V'Yerushalayim Yercha B'Rachamim Tashuv. As Tzemach David Abdecha, we're missing so much. We have so much that we are longing for. And then Nesivos Shalom tells us that the beginning of the building of the Beis HaMikdash, we all want to know, how can we help? What can we do now in the 3 weeks? What can we do during the Bein Hametzarim to build the Beis HaMikdash? You know where the beginning of the building of the Beis HaMikdash comes from? It comes from our longing and waiting and wanting this galus to end. Of understanding that this galus is not our place. And no, it is not okay that we are here in Chutz La'aretz. It is not okay that we are in galus. And no matter how many luxuries we have, and no matter how kind HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been to Klal Yisrael lately, we still have to understand that this here is not our place. We are strangers here, and they don't like us, and they don't want us, and we don't belong here. And that's what Golus is all about. And we have to understand that no matter how good we think it is, we need to know every day that this is not our place. And especially during the 3 weeks of the Bein Hametzarim, we can be more sensitive to this idea. And we need to know that just by longing for the Beis HaMikdash, just by longing for Yerushalayim, we're actually building. That is what the building is all about. By every person saying, no, it's not okay. It's not good that we're here. We long to live and to be with the Beis HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. And it's something that needs to become part of us. The waiting and the thirst for Bias HaMashiach. See, Shalom brings down that the philosopher Apalton, after the Churban Abayis, he was a philosopher who was a non-Jew, and he saw Yirmiyahu HaNavi, and Yirmiyahu HaNavi was mourning severely. He was mourning over the Churban Abayis. And he was wondering why. Yirmiyahu HaNavi, you're a brilliant man. You're such a smart man. Why are you crying? Why are you crying over spilled milk? People who are smart don't cry over something that's gone and it's over. Yirmiyahu HaNavi, what are you doing? The philosopher wondered about that. Something that was no more. Why are you crying about it, Yirmiyahu? And Yirmiyahu HaNavi said, you know what? You will never understand the mourning this way, the way that a Jew mourns. I can't even explain it to you. And he said like this, he says, as a Jew, we cry. You know why a Jew cries over the Churban? A Jew cries because we cry for the future. We long for the future. And that's why we are emotional. We don't just cry over something that was and something that happened. David HaMelech, when he was far from the Beis HaMikdash, he was in Midbar Yehuda. David HaMelech was not near the Beis HaMikdash. David HaMelech said, Tzoma lecha nafshi, I am thirsty for you, Hashem, for the future. I want to come back to you. And that is the way a Jew mourns. A Jew mourns by worrying and asking that our future should be better. That what we have now is no good. We want something better. We want Yerushalayim, the Beis HaMikdash, in our future. The Pasuk tells us by Moshe Rabbeinu, when Moshe Rabbeinu was born, that Miriam saw, Vatireu, she saw Moshe Rabbeinu, as we know, floating in a basket. And she said, Vatoimer miyaldei ho'ivrim zeh. That Moshe Rabbeinu somehow, Basia, I'm sorry, not Miriam. Miriam had put Moshe Rabbeinu there. Basia, the daughter of Parai, saw this baby, and she said, Miyaldei ho'ivrim zeh. She knew that this baby was a Jew. How did she know? The Nesivos Shalom tells us that you know because she heard the cry of a Jew. The cry of a Jew is not the cry of a non-Jew. A non-Jew cries because I'm missing what happened before. I miss it. It's over. It's not this way anymore. That's not the cry of a Jew. The cry of a Jew is a cry of longing, a cry of that we are waiting to come back to Yerushalayim, that we want Yerushalayim. We want to be close to the Shekhinah. We want this back. So she heard, Basia Bas Paroi heard, she said, Vatoimer miyaldei ho'ivrim zeh. She heard this is a different type of crying. Moshe Rabbeinu, as a young baby, Moshe Rabbeinu was crying the way of a Jew. He was longing for the future, longing that the future should be better. And now this is the Bein Hametzarim. This is the lesson we have to learn, that we can't roll through these 3 weeks just by rote and just the way we've done it in the past. We understand that in order for us to build the Beis HaMikdash, the building takes place from longing, and every one of us could do that. Every one of us could train ourselves to long for Yerushalayim. This week, Parshas Balak, this Shabbos, in Shivasa B'Tamuz, for the next 3 weeks, we need to have this on our mind. B'Yerushalayim ircha v'rachamim tashuv.